Welcome everyone to this explainer. Today we're jumping straight into a totally high-stakes rapid-fire tournament bracket. Our goal, we want to find out exactly how a top horology expert ranks the world's most elite luxury watch brands. We're looking at this really fun this or that elimination game played by Khaled from Luxury Souk. Now, you might be wondering, why does his opinion matter so much? Well, Khaled handles these ultra-elite, incredibly rare pieces literally every single day. He's got this unfiltered perspective that just cuts straight through the endless brand marketing and, those ridiculous retail waitlists. So this gives us a uniquely raw look into an expert's true top watch picks. All right, let's dive right in and see how this bracket actually unfolds.
The premise here is beautifully simple, but man, the answers are incredibly revealing for anyone even remotely passionate about horology. I mean, when you strip away the massive advertising budgets, the celebrity endorsements, and just the sheer noise of the luxury market, which watch brand truly reigns supreme? In the mind of a guy who understands the movements, the hand finishing, and the heritage inside and out, the answers might actually surprise you. We're going to analyze this thrilling head-to-head matchup, so let's just jump right into the very first round. The tension's high, the brands are absolute legends, and we're about to see who survives the initial cut. So our expert starts with what he openly admits is a brutally tough question. He's pitting the absolute industry giant Rolex against the historical heavyweight Vacheron Constantin. What a fascinating opening clash. On one hand, you've got Rolex, right? Unparalleled mass market dominance, supreme reliability, and just an iron grip on global brand recognition. But on the other hand, you have Vacheron Constantin, a proud member of horology's holy trinity, with literally centuries of uninterrupted watchmaking pedigree and high complication mastery. It's the ultimate battle of universal prestige versus elite tradition. Despite calling it a tough choice, actually hands the initial victory to Rolex, letting the famous crown advance based on its undeniable, rock-solid standing.
But hey, Rolex doesn't hold that crown for very long, because the moment Audemars Piguet, or AP, enters the ring, the dynamic just completely shifts. AP immediately knocks Rolex out of the bracket. It's this swift, decisive victory that sets a totally new pace for the tournament. When you think about why AP might have the edge in our expert's mind, it honestly comes down to that immense cultural weight and the instantly recognizable paradigm-shifting design of the Royal Oak. AP bridges the gap between high horology hand finishing and modern, aggressive styling in a way that clearly resonates with someone who handles thousands of watches a year. And AP just keeps that momentum rolling right into the next round. It effortlessly defends its new title against the historical pioneer Breguet. Now just consider the sheer gravity of Breguet for a second. This is the brand founded by the literal inventor of the tourbillon. It's a name woven into the very fabric of watchmaking history. So for AP to defend its position without even breaking a sweat against such a legendary house, that is incredibly telling. It really highlights how strongly AP's modern relevance and iconic design language hold up, keeping it firmly established as the reigning champion of our bracket. The pace refuses to slow down as the next challenger, Piaget, steps up to the plate. Known for their mastery of ultra-thin movements and elegant jewelry-inspired timepieces, Piaget represents a totally different side of luxury watchmaking. You'd kind of expect a moment of hesitation here from our expert, right? Maybe taking a second to weigh the pros and cons of AP's bold, sporty aesthetic against Piaget's really refined, slender profile. You'd think there'd be a deliberate pause to consider the different engineering philosophies. But that is absolutely not what happens.
Khaled doesn't even blink. He immediately declares 100% AP, bringing just absolute certainty to Audemars Piguet's dominance in this phase of the game. There's zero gray area here. You can literally hear the unwavering conviction in his voice. In this specific matchup, it is a total shutout. It speaks volumes about the absolute stronghold that Audemars Piguet has established in today's luxury market. When a top expert doesn't even need a split second to think about the choice, you know the brand's impact is operating on an entirely different level.
Which brilliantly illustrates AP's impressive winning streak. Let's just pause and look at the magnitude of what just happened. We're looking at 3 consecutive, decisive matchups where Audemars Piguet completely dominated the middle rounds. They took out the global titan that is Rolex, they defeated the historical innovator Breguet, and they completely shut out the ultra-thin masters at Piaget back-to-back. To sweep through that level of competition so effortlessly, it means they look practically unstoppable right now. It's a pretty remarkable testament to the brand's current cultural and horological cachet. However, all good things must come to an end, and that incredible streak ends abruptly right here. The legendary Patek Philippe steps up to the plate. Now this is the ultimate heavyweight in traditional watchmaking. Patek is often considered the undisputed king of the hill by purists. They bring this unmatched legacy of grand complications, generational value, and absolute prestige. When faced with this iconic giant, the choice suddenly becomes clear all over again. Khaled makes the call, and Patek Philippe finally dethrones the juggernaut that was AP, bringing a sense of traditional horological order back to the bracket.
But just as Patek looks poised to go on an unstoppable streak of its own, the entire landscape shifts completely. We step away from the mainstream and traditional luxury giants, and the ultra-high-end independent watchmakers enter the gauntlet. MB&F steps into the ring and pulls off a massive, paradigm-shifting upset, taking down the mighty Patek Philippe. This is a super crucial pivot in our experts' top watch picks. It represents a jump from classical, centuries-old tradition to the wild, avant-garde world of futuristic horological machines. It really shows a deep appreciation for pushing the absolute boundaries of what a mechanical watch can even look like.
Let's move to the next round and see how this builds, because now we are firmly entrenched in the clash of the independents. MB&F faces off against Greubel Forsey. And man, this is where the choices get incredibly hard. Both of these brands represent the absolute bleeding edge of complex, independent horological engineering. You're no longer comparing heritage, you're comparing mind-bending micro-mechanical architecture. On one side, you have MB&F's radical, kinetic art. On the other, Greubel Forsey's obsessive, multi-axis tourbillons and peerless hand finishing. It forces an expert to choose between two completely different, yet equally astonishing, visions of modern watchmaking.
You can actually hear the genuine surprise and admiration from our expert when he's faced with this specific matchup. He literally says, "Wow, Greubel Forsey." It's this wonderful moment of pure appreciation for the craft. That pause, that sheer reverence, it tells you everything you need to know about the level of finishing and mechanical obsession Greubel Forsey brings to the table. In the end, that absolute dedication to perfection manages to edge out the incredible creativity of MB&F, allowing Greubel Forsey to advance deeper into our bracket. The gauntlet at this level of independent watchmaking is totally unforgiving, though. Almost as soon as Greubel Forsey takes the lead, they are immediately bested by another independent heavyweight, FP Journe. Journe steps in and decisively halts Greubel Forsey's momentum. This is essentially a battle between absolute maximalist engineering and profound classical restraint. FP Journe brings an unparalleled level of traditional craftsmanship, famously inventing movements from solid gold and channeling the spirit of 18th century horology into modern masterpieces. And that sheer classical brilliance is enough to take the lead. And that brings us to our grand finale, the ultimate showdown to determine the expert's true top pick. This is such a fascinating philosophical battle. On one side, we have the classical, refined mastery and deep historical resonance of FP Journe. On the other side, we have the ultimate symbol of modern hype, cutting-edge aerospace materials, and aggressive architectural skeletonization, Richard Mille. It is the old soul of independent watchmaking versus the hyper-modern shock and awe of the billionaire's handshake. So, who actually takes the crown?
Well, the verdict is absolutely ruthless. Colette doesn't just pick FP Journe. He decisively places Richard Mille at the absolute bottom compared to his final choice. His exact words? RM bottom. It's a definitive, uncompromising dismissal of pure hype in favor of classical, independent mastery. It goes to show that when you look at watches all day, every day, the novelty of brightly colored composites and massive celebrity associations eventually fades away, but the enduring appeal of true horological genius remains completely steadfast.
Which means, emerging victorious from this grueling, rapid-fire shootout, FP Journe takes the ultimate crown. In our experts bracket, amidst all the biggest names in the world, from the massive volume of Rolex to the holy trinity prestige of Patek Philippe, right up to the cutting-edge shock of Richard Mille, FP Journe stands alone. It is a triumphant, undisputed victory that perfectly highlights where true connoisseurship often leads.
When we look back at the hierarchy that unfolded, a really fascinating journey emerges. We start down at the base with mainstream luxury giants like Rolex, representing universal appeal and rock-solid reliability. Then, we climb up through the highly coveted, historically significant realms of Audemars Piguet and Patek Philippe. But the true peak, the very top of this expert's mountain, is reserved for the independent watchmaking brilliance of FP Journe. This ascension is incredibly telling. It shows that as an expert's palate evolves, their appreciation naturally shifts away from mass-produced luxury, gravitating toward the rare, singular visions of independent masters who are personally pushing the art of horology forward.
As we wrap up this explainer, I want to leave you with a final provocative thought to chew on. Does independent horology always outrank mainstream luxury for true experts? When the waitlists are ignored and the hype is entirely stripped away, why do the top voices in the industry ultimately crown the quiet, independent masters over the loudest, most recognizable brands in the room?
Actually, maybe true luxury isn't about who recognizes your watch from across the room at all. Maybe it's about the uncompromising art sitting quietly on your wrist. It's definitely something to think about next time you see a watch bracket. Thanks so much for joining me on this deep dive, and keep questioning the hype.